I told Mary I was not going to include any jokes in my introduction because I figured Josh would have had that covered, so check. All right. Mary Werdebaugh has served as the Director of Community Outreach at Organic Remedies for 2 years. She is passionate about educating patients, healthcare professionals, law enforcement, and the local community on the proper use, the benefits, and the regulations surrounding medical marijuana. She actively seeks out opportunities to improve the patient experience and to educate the community that she serves. As Director of Community Outreach, Mary has successfully increased licensed patient visit numbers at every Organic Remedies dispensary on a monthly basis since her joining the company. And in that capacity, she's helped the company expand its footprint from 1 location to 3 locations, all the while helping to educate the surrounding public about the safe, legal use of medical marijuana to treat a wide array of ailments and conditions that were previously only addressable through traditional pharmaceuticals. Mary is also an adjunct instructor at HAC in a 6-credit medical cannabis course that issues a certificate upon completion. She teaches her students how to work one-on-one with patients as a patient care specialist, and she educates on the science behind recommendations of treatment for patient conditions. She also keeps the students involved in current industry news, ways to be proactive, and instructs on how to become a patient or a caregiver here in Pennsylvania. So Rotarians, please help me welcome Mary Werdebaugh.
Thank you everyone so much for having me today. I appreciate it. I didn't have any corny jokes planned, but no samples today. I'm so sorry, I'm all out. Well, thank you for the introduction. I am Mary Werdebaugh, Director of Community Outreach at Organic Remedies. I look forward to this, and Q&A is one of my favorite parts of this segment, so we will definitely have some time for questions at the end as well. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right, our topics today, we're going to talk about just a basic overview of the Pennsylvania Medical Marijuana Program. I'll go over the qualifying conditions in Pennsylvania. My favorite part is the science behind the stigma, why medical marijuana is approved and why it's working for all these different conditions. The difference between THC, CBD, and hemp-based CBD as well. We'll talk about the available products that you can purchase at the dispensary, patient caregiver registration, certified physicians, and what a pharmacist and patient relationship is and what that means from a dispensary level. So how did we get here? April 17, 2016, Governor Tom Wolf approved the Medical Marijuana Act, which is Act 16. This gives the patient the right to have medical marijuana if they are approved through a licensed physician. And Act 16 was structured to keep this a very medicinalized approach. We're actually very lucky to be in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is the first state in the entire country to conduct research on medical cannabis. So right now, where we are at, there isn't a ton of data behind long-term studies or short-term studies being done on medical marijuana. But thankfully in Pennsylvania, we are the first ones approved. We're actually working with 8 universities right now, conducting research on the conditions to be able to have some science behind of what would be correct to use with certain conditions. Organic Remedies, this is news as of last week, was just approved, and we are partnering with Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine in Philly, and we were studying the opioid use disorder and using medical marijuana for that. So what regulations are required to be able to have product at the dispensary? If you purchase just CBD anywhere from sheets, that is not cannabis, that is hemp-based. And there's not a ton of studies, testings being done on that. Anything that we sell at a dispensary from seed to sale is lab tested 3 times for any harmful agents. Anything that comes up with any pesticides, everything is grown organically, anything that could be harmful for human consumption is destroyed. So everything is pressed organic cannabis or just the raw plant itself. So the qualifying conditions, the main 3 that I will focus on, anxiety was the most recent one added. In the first 30 days, anxiety was added to the condition list. 3,000 patients were added to the program. We started off before anxiety being added at about 180,000 patients. Today, now we have 287,000 patients, either registered or caregivers registered for the program, and that's in Pennsylvania. So it added a lot more patients to our added list. But all of these that you're seeing are either stemmed from any type of nerve damage or chronic pain or inflammation disorders, inflammatory disorders, arthritic pain. All of these can be approved under chronic pain, which is the #1 condition and the most common one used, just because it is a very vague diagnosis. Another thing we see a lot in Pennsylvania as well is Lyme's disease. That's not approved on the condition list, but that was something like fibromyalgia, lupus, Lyme's, all of these inflammatory related disorders would be under chronic pain. And there are 23 approved conditions right now. The opioid use disorder is another new one. PTSD, we see that a lot as well. And cancer is the #3 condition, and that includes either current cancer therapy or remission therapy as well. So a little bit of a closer look. So when any other therapeutic options have been exhausted, so using myself as an example, I know I don't have a ton of time today, but a little bit about my background. In 2016, I was diagnosed with something very similar to Crohn's disease. I literally woke up one day at 22 years old, and I went from about 130 pounds to 82 pounds within 6 months. I didn't really know what was wrong. I was having a ton of digestive issues for the first time in my life, and long story short, after being in Hopkins, Hershey, and being on a laundry list of medication for the first time in my life, I wanted a way out. I didn't really see a future of long-term being on this medication that caused me such awful side effects. The medication that when I was on it saved my life, but for long-term, and we see this a lot with the opioid use epidemic, with a lot of different conditions, short-term these medications could be life-saving, but long-term, it's something I didn't want to be on forever. I ended up finding a naturopathic doctor in Australia. She changed my life. Herbal medicine. In the first 6 weeks I worked with her, I went in complete remission. At that time, Organic Remedies was opening up, and I told my story, and I've been there ever since. Mm-hmm. So ever since I've been studying cannabis, and if you would have told me 5 years ago when I was going to school for nutrition and working as a loan underwriter that I'd be up in front of different groups speaking about cannabis, I would have never believed you. But life takes you away, and I truly think this is my passion and why I'm here now. So it gave me a whole new respect for it, working with patients every day. When I first started there, we saw probably about 20 patients a day or so. Looking back, I really don't know what we did with our time, not seeing that many people, but now we see up to 300 patients a day. So it has gotten tremendously busy, and it's growing every single day. But it's something too that kind of gives you a whole new respect, because those 23 conditions, as you read down them, a lot of them are invisible. Some of them aren't as well, but it kind of gives you a whole new heart, because you really have no idea what someone's going through at any age, and it doesn't discriminate at all. So it's something that when there's an alternative method that could have them have a lot less side effects, by all means, it's something that we'd like to take advantage of. So a physician may specify on a certain form. Like myself, capsules really wouldn't do that well for me. I don't absorb things as well as I could. So something more liquid would help better. Or if we have a pediatric patient, so something like autism is an approved condition, epilepsy is an approved condition as well. Obviously, we wouldn't want them vaping. So we would go to a different form. They would put restrictions on their account that we abide to every time that we dispense product. So my favorite part, the science behind the stigma. If I hear anyone snoring, I'll go to the next slide, I promise. So marijuana has many phytocannabinoids. That's a big fancy word for basically chemicals in the plant that do incredible things for your body when it's medicinally dosed. So when someone goes for a run, if you're in shape and everything, you're not having a heart attack, but you feel kind of a runner's high. You feel like very rejuvenated, you feel good. After you worked out, that basically is your CB1 and CB2 receptor working well and causing a euphoric effect. When you consume cannabis, this does the same thing. Your CB1 receptor is found in your nervous tissue. This helps with appetite stimulation, pain suppression, perception changes. Your CB2 receptor is in your immune cells. This also helps with pain suppression and anti-inflammatory response. Whenever you consume cannabis, these two receptors just work better. That's why often whenever you consume cannabis, you'll get a side effect like you might get the munchies, or you might get a really good night's sleep because you're having a lot of muscle relaxation, or a perception changes. If it's not medicinally dosed, you might feel a little bit too high or euphoric, depending on what form you're using as well. And so here's the cannabinoids. The main two is THC and CBD. If someone were to buy marijuana from a friend or anything, that's going to be THC. It's easier to grow, it's less expensive, and it causes a very strong high or euphoric effect when it's not medicinally dosed. But when you have when you're listening to someone who is licensed and kind of guiding you to dose it properly, THC can be extremely beneficial for helping with nausea, also helping with pain relief. Now CBD, which is not hemp-based CBD, I heard you all had a recent, someone speak about hemp-based, that's almost like a cousin plant. Hemp-based CBD, there's not a ton of science of your body being able to absorb it properly. And another thing, you can purchase CBD anywhere, from a natural food store, from Sheetz, any convenience store. Those products are not tested. If they were, they'd probably be a little bit more expensive. There isn't a ton of guidance of knowing how much you should take for your certain condition as well. So a clerk at a convenience store won't know how to guide you that way. So it's really, really important. I always say if you're using hemp-based CBD and it's working, great. But if you can get something tested or get something under the guidance of someone that can help you with the dosing, by all means, you're just working with more professionals, there's more of a chance that it'll work better. And CBD on its own as well, getting like a hemp-based tincture can be really expensive. But CBD in cannabis is non-intoxicating. It won't induce a high. All that THC is doing is helping your body absorb it. They work together like a sponge. I always say, if you were just using CBD, it's like the Uber car picks you up but doesn't take you home. THC will help you take you home. So sometimes it works, but it just helps each other work better. So terpenes. In cannabis is also found terpenes. The fruit on everyone's plate today from lunch, those naturally have terpenes in it. The smell of citrus is called limonene. This is also found in cannabis as well. All of these help promote the taste and the effects of cannabis. So whenever you open up a clementine and it gives you this very energizing citrus scent, that's also found in cannabis. So depending on the certain terpenes found in it, they can help you either relax or they can help you feel energized and motivated as well. So the available dosage forms, there's a solid oral form. This can be for someone that is wanting long-lasting relief, up to 6 to 8 hours if their absorption rates are okay, but it may take about 45 minutes to kick in for someone. This is also good for an experienced user because 5 milligrams to me versus 5 milligrams for someone else could be a lot different. So that's when oral liquids come in handy because you can start very small and work your way up until you figure out how much you like. Oral tinctures is a liquid dropper that you place directly under the tongue. It takes about 15 minutes to kick in and then lasts about 4 hours. And they're nice because you can microdose them as well. Topicals are creams and ointments you can put directly on the area. They're good for secondary pain relief. My grandmother would kill me if she knew in these events that I always brought her name up, but she is a medical marijuana patient. She's 88 years old, never in her life used cannabis, but her goal, she had a double knee replacement, and she wanted to be able to golf again. She became a patient and puts the THC cream on her knees. It doesn't cost her to be high or anything. It just helps her knee pain, and she swears by it. She uses it every single day, so it's really something. And then we have vape oil, which is vaporization cartridges, and dry leaf as well. In Pennsylvania, it is only approved to vaporize. Smoking anything is not approved just because that is considered as a little bit of an overconsumption. It's a lot easier to microdose what you're doing and get a consistent dose when you're just vaporizing the oils of the plant. So potential effects, short term, even after minutes you might feel a little bit of a cough, euphoria, dry eyes, dry mouth. Longer term, depending if you took a little too much, it could cause a little uneasiness. I compare it to like if you had a little too much coffee. If you had too much espresso and you feel a little uneasy, you probably just had the wrong strain. If you're already using something or already used to being kind of worked up and you're using something that's also going to work you up, it's just like having a little too much caffeine. You might just feel a little uneasy until it wears off a little bit. Hunger, thirst, red eye, and drowsiness is another side effect. Our main focus is just with a new patient is to start low and go slow. It's not like cannabis from the 70s or it's a lot more potent now. One thing that's nice is it's all tested. You can control what kind you're getting. You control the effects that you're getting by the amount you're taking as well. So always start low. You can always add more. So if someone is interested in becoming a patient or a caregiver, the first step is to register online. This is either between a $25 or a $50 fee. After that, you will see an approved physician. There is a list of that on the Department of Health. If they have more than a 30-day wait, I always say contact a dispensary. We're happy to help you get into someone sooner. Once you see that physician, he's basically there to verify that you have one of the 23 approved conditions in Pennsylvania. Once you get that approval, you get your medical marijuana card in the mail. This looks just like your driver's license, but they're not connected. That would be a HIPAA violation. But it looks just like your driver's license, and it will say patient or caregiver on the top of it. And then you're able to visit a dispensary. So for a caregiver, if someone is homebound or if you're a caregiver for someone, you can have up to 5 patients underneath you. And this is just what the list looks like of the certified physicians. So whenever the first time you come to see a pharmacist at a dispensary, it's not like, I promise we don't play reggae music very loud. It's actually a lot like a doctor's office. You walk in, you will have a form that you fill out, an intake form that talks about anything that you're suffering with, any type of anxiety, if you have a hard time with nausea, if you need something to help you sleep at night, and you also bring a list of your medications. This is when a practicing pharmacist is going to help you walk you through the entire step. Your first step is to fill out the intake form. You will then have a one-on-one consultation. If you think about when you go to CVS to pick up a prescription, you may have 2 minutes with the pharmacist. You ask, should I take this with food? Or, so okay, I take this twice a day, okay. And then you leave. That's really the only relationship you have. This consultation can last up to an hour. There is never a charge to see the pharmacist. We will walk you through the entire steps of cannabis. What forms you're comfortable with, when you need relief. If you work during the day and you can't feel, I need to stay focused. If I need pain relief, I can't feel out of my mind. Everyone is too busy. We need to feel ourselves. We don't want to, be high, or you put in any of your concerns in that consultation. We'll take all that into consideration into what we're recommending you. After you see the pharmacist, you then see one of our patient care specialists. These are all trained professionals in our company that all have training on the products that we dispense and then the conditions as well. We are all approved through the state also to recommend product. There's a test that we have to all take to be able to dispense product at all in a dispensary. So summary overview, I know we got a lot of info in a short period of time, but I want to make sure there was some time for Q&A. We talked about the overview of the medical marijuana program, the qualifying conditions, a little bit of the science behind it, the patient caregiver registration. Now for some questions. Thank you everyone so much, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about the financial end?
Absolutely.
One, does insurance cover
Yes,
any
so
prescriptions? And 2, what is the markup from what you pay your supplier to what you charge the customer?
Well, the first statement, an average patient spends about $130 a month. That is a complete estimate. Depending on the form that they take, and depending how much they need to use and the level they're paying, but around $130. It is cash only. We do not accept card or anything. We actually have a very hard time in Pennsylvania with banking in general. Only one bank even accepts our business. So it is a cash only business. But everything ranges, you know. I see some patients that can get by with, you know, $40 to $50 a month, up to, you know, over $200. But if you're spending too much, we always try and get you something that will maybe give you a little bit of a longer lasting pain relief.
But it's not reimbursable through insurance?
It's not, unfortunately. No, it is still federally illegal. So we run into some issues there, and it's not reimbursable. From what I've seen yet, yeah, I have not seen that. Now for the markup, it depends. I don't know if I can answer that really, but we don't. There is no taxes involved. If that helps at all, but I will have to get you an email that we will send that question to. Thank you.
Hey Mary, so had the opportunity to walk a relative who went through a pretty serious bout of cancer, double mastectomy, hysterectomy, etc. up in Connecticut, and took her to the physician that gave her medical card. Everyone was very happy in that office, very happy. So, and I'm being dead serious, but anyway, you're absolutely right. The pharmacy, the dispensary was remarkable, clean, professional. I mean, just first class. My question is, what advice, or do you have counselors or legal counsel, do you give to employees of companies who are in a medical marijuana state and have one of the conditions, but it's illegal recreationally, and of course the federal government as well?
Right.
I know there was a case in Connecticut, Hofsinger or whatever, that might set precedent across state lines where she actually sued for this and actually won. So anyway, if you could talk to that, it'd be great.
Absolutely. So the main, if you are a patient or know a loved one that is a patient, I encourage you to print out Act 16. Know your rights as a patient. Act 16, Section 2103. You legally cannot be discriminated if you are a medical marijuana patient. This goes for, now, if you're showing up to work under the influence, of course, that is different. But if you disclose that you have a patient card to your HR, and that law, you legally cannot be terminated for having your medical marijuana card. That is a big concern that we get a lot. Now, federally, that is when you run into an issue. Everything is kind of considered unlawful from a federal standpoint. I was recently speaking to a big group of law enforcement, about 70 or so of them, and they were like, you know, we would use this, but it's federally illegal and we can't. And they kind of made that joke, but they really can't legally. Now, I have witnessed some employees that have been in a larger, supposedly they swore that they did not use that day, they were not under the influence, but they, you know, had a regular drug screening and failed. And when he presented the patient card, he got terminated. And he fought and he won. And there was a big case over that. So it's very important to know your rights. So I always say, you know, if you are going to be in something new, it's very important to ask as many questions as you have. Read the law so you know your rights for sure. Yeah, thank you, and I'm happy to hear about your family member that helped them so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you are an adjunct professor at HAC, correct?
Yes.
And on one hand, this is still unlawful federally. So is this program that you teach at HAC federally accredited? And are you receiving Title IV funds, or is HAC receiving Title IV funds for this program?
So it is, there's the rate online with the class itself. I only teach the dispensary operations side and then the patient advocacy side of it. The main instructor is Kevin Evans, and he is like the head professor of the entire class. I only teach certain courses of it. It is accredited 6 credits as continuing education and a certification course as well. After my students complete 16 weeks of the class, they complete a 6-week internship, either with a dispensary, a grower processor, or a lab tech, where they would test product, depending on which way they want to go in the dispensary, in the industry, in the cannabis industry. I would help them with the dispensary side of that if they're interested in working in the dispensary side. For hack itself, that's not something I really see, if they receive funding, but the course does cost, there are some scholarship programs for it, but it is around $3,000. So it is a little expensive compared to other courses that they offer.
Thank you for a very clear explanation. Since I am really quite dumb about this stuff, I'm going to ask a dumb question. If I go to my doctor, is my doctor going to write me a prescription for something that I would have for getting medical marijuana? Or do I choose to want medical marijuana because my doctor won't do it, but I have a pain somewhere, so I come to you, or somehow get a card, or if I can't get a card, then I go to Steve Groff's place on Queen Street and I just get his hemp CBD. I'm mixed up here.
No, I know what you mean. So it is up to you. One thing that I struggled with whenever I thought maybe alternative medicine could be beneficial for me, I didn't want to tell my GI doctor because he was very old school with things. I was afraid that he would cut me off completely, and we see that a lot with pain clinics. Someone says they're on medical marijuana and they cut off their medication that they take daily and that they need just because they're using this, and that's very unfortunate. So it's kind of up to you to disclose that to your primary practitioner. I encourage it, especially if they would be supportive in, through your time of being a medical marijuana patient and using that to heal. One thing, if your doctor is not an approved physician in Pennsylvania to get your card, then they really might not have a whole lot. You will have to see an approved practitioner. They will have to go through testing to be able to be an approved practitioner to recommend you for a medical marijuana card. There's really no prescriptions at all involved through the process whatsoever. All of it is really a recommendation. So it would be either you bring previous documentation of your recorded illness, that's on one of the 23 approved conditions, and you may see a physician. That really his only job is there to verify that paperwork. If he's okay to give you the card, if he has the right certification for that, you will then go get the card in the mail from him. You might not really have a relationship with him as a physician. Yeah, did that answer your question, hopefully? Okay.
I have a question about migraine headaches. Is this thing well understood enough that a strain of marijuana could be used to mitigate the pain of a migraine headache, while at the same time not affecting cognitive skills or creative skills, so that someone could still function at their best while having their pain relieved?
Sure. So we see that a lot, migraines, and that could be something under the chronic pain condition, under one of the most common ones. If you're worried about feeling, depending what the migraines are, what the root cause of them is. If it's something inflammatory going on, CBD could be very beneficial for that. So that would be a strain that would be dominant in CBD, that would not cause a psychoactive effect. It'd be treating the root cause of what's going on, which is inflammation. The only downside with CBD, or using something that is higher CBD, it shows that your body's endocannabinoid system takes on average about 4 to 6 weeks for your body to start absorbing it to its full potential. If anyone's had a migraine, you want to get rid of it ASAP. Higher THC strains that can cause a euphoric effect, but when it's medicinally dosed, you can really control that. I remember when I first started, I was like, I don't see much benefit in vaping, personally. I think there could be other forms that could be just better and they last you a bit longer, until I realized vaping is one of the only ways you can get instant relief. Someone who's had a migraine and been suffering or needs to fall asleep and can't fall asleep, 1 or 2 hits of a vape can really, really give you that effect instantly. And if you've had it too much, if you feel too euphoric or not yourself, it goes away within an hour or so. So it's something that you can really microdose and figure out how much you need.
Okay, this is a follow-up. Would the same things be true of facial pain caused by trigeminal neuralgia?
We see that a lot, actually. Depending specifically on the patient, generally a higher CBD will help treat the root cause. So taking something that's going to take on a regular regimen, that's going to last them throughout the evening, but for instant pain relief, something that's going to be higher THC to treat that pain. And also the anxiety and everything that comes along with a condition as chronic and painful as that. Yeah, you're welcome.
If I understand what you said before, I'm still a little fuzzy on the doctor part. So if I understand what you said before, I can go to one of these certified doctors to get a card. And when I do that, that doctor doesn't have to talk to my doctor and learn my medical history.
No, not necessarily.
When I get the card, that doesn't necessarily say, well, I should have access to this product in this form, in this dose.
Sorry.
One more thing. And when it comes to you, when I come to you and bring my list of medications, my doctor's not going to know that I'm using this product necessarily unless I tell him.
Right.
And is it your folks who are deciding that this product is okay with my other medication?
So it's the pharmacist. The pharmacist, the one who can differentiate. With the studies, and if there's any questions about this, I will always refer to a pharmacist because that is their expertise side of it with any interactions. Warfarin is really the only one that they just keep an eye on. A little bit of a blood thinner. They've had some studies that if you use a very large amount of cannabis, it can be a little bit of a blood thinner. Other than that, depending on, it's just kind of controlling your head effects to make sure you're not taking heavy doses of pain medication and something that's going to cause it to be more. Now with that physician, hopefully I remember every part that you asked, I'm sorry, and just tell me if I didn't, but so whenever it is up to you to disclose that to your practitioner. Basically, if he's not an approved physician in the state of Pennsylvania to get you the card, then you have to look at the list that is provided on the Department of Health website, or call us and we will refer you to someone that's close to you. Basically, that appointment with that doctor will really only be, here's previous documentation on my illness. And they have you bring that just because you don't have a history with that physician. You're considered as a new patient with them. And really, that doctor's only job is to get you the card. The only thing that he can do he or she could do, they don't really have a lot of training in medical marijuana, so they might put a restriction on a form. If they think you have, some asthma, or if you express to them that you can't inhale anything, they will put a restriction on your account that will say no vaporization or no dry leaf forms. Other than restrictions on the account, they don't. Normally, I have not really seen it yet of a physician being too involved with the types, other than just putting restrictions on the forms.
So at the beginning of your presentation, you talked about Pennsylvania making provisions for scientific research.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the research intents, some of those study focuses, or foci, and over what period of time do you expect that there will be results that have been found and published? What's the research horizon?
Yeah, when I say it's new, it just started. Last week, we just got approved for it, and that was them applying through the Department of Health. The Department of Health approved us to work with the Philadelphia Osteopathic Medicine. I would say within 5 to 10 years. It will be some time. They will have some short conducted studies, I'm sure, but it is still so new, it is hard for me to tell.
So is the goal to find intensity of study and publishable results that will stand up in peer-reviewed medical journals and other scientific publications?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, with time. Yeah, those definitely take some time. Now, we got approved to do the opioid use disorder. That is one that there's a lot of ups and downs, and some people that really do not see it beneficial for someone who is treating an opioid use disorder using medical marijuana. So that is one that got approved to conduct research on. So hopefully within the next 5 to 10 years or so there roughly, to see what certain strains are helping and what certain forms are more beneficial from, their database.
Thank you for your presentation today. And follow up on Albert's question, actually. So, FDA, can you speak a little bit to that? Some things that are consumed are considered, actual approved and tested medication, and some things are considered dietary supplements. Can you speak to that?
So anything you're ingesting, so that would, dietary supplement would fall under the hemp part of it. This is not FDA approved. The ones that they are testing for is any added agents to any of the products. So far, with it not being federally legal, it's still considered a Schedule I drug. So there is some gray area with that for sure. For anything in detail with the FDA, I would have to ask my pharmacist to get more information on that. But yeah, unfortunately, it is still not approved and still federally illegal. So there's definitely some gray area with that so far.
Thank you.
Hi Mary, we were talking a little bit earlier before the presentation, and I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to purchase of firearms as it relates to the licensure of medical marijuana.
Yeah, so with medical marijuana still being illegal, federally illegal, whenever you go to purchase a firearm, you do have to fill out a federal form that asks if you are an unlawful user of medical marijuana. From a federal standpoint, you are. So you will not lose any rights that you had previously to being a medical marijuana patient, but once you're a medical marijuana patient, you cannot purchase another one. Like if I were to have my concealed carry or have guns previously of being a medical marijuana patient, I wouldn't lose any of those rights, but I couldn't purchase another one. And that also goes with the federal laws. You legally cannot, if I wanted to leave the state of Pennsylvania and take my medication with me, legally I can't. That becomes a federal issue if you were to cross state lines. So that's something, that can be tough if you go on vacation and you use something daily. There's definitely a lot of gray area in the law for sure, with the federal law being the way it is.
Mary, with your patients who have medical marijuana cards and use the product, are they at a higher risk of getting a DUI? And so how does that process work? Because I understand that stays in your system a lot longer and you can test positive, you can spend days in some of those.
That is a big concern, for sure. And I always say, with all these bills coming out where we want recreational marijuana, we want this, I said, be careful what you wish for. With the DUI law where it's at, just because their testing that they have for it is just a blood test that basically tests if it's in your system. Marijuana stays in your system for up to 30 days. So even if you didn't use, a lot of these products don't last longer than 8 hours or so. So I always say, really just like any other prescription drug, just be careful. Treat it just like that. You know your body best. If you're under the influence, please do not go behind the wheel. But yeah, there is warnings on all of the, you can't, drive with the product under the influence, of course, and that is something that can be more of a risk if you're a patient. I will tell you from personal experience, that is something, me being a patient, that I've been concerned about. I recently got pulled over for my light right above my license plate being out. I didn't even realize there was a light there. But I play guitar, so it was a little late that I was driving home, so it was probably just a check. But I wasn't drinking, thank God. But yeah, I got pulled over and he just asked where I was going and I told him home, and in my wallet you can see my card. And he asked if I was a medical marijuana patient, and my heart just went, because it scared me. And I said, yes, and I was just thinking in my head, I know my rights, I know my rights, I know my rights. I handed him my patient card and I said, yes, I'm a medical marijuana patient, I have not used today. I'm currently driving home, and I knew I wasn't under the influence. And he said, thank you, have a nice day. I have heard other horror stories about it, but me personally, I mean, I've spoke to the police before, and depends on how they feel about it personally, so I think I was lucky.
So just to jump back to the question about the firearms, I was under the impression, and I had read online, that
for a concealed carry permit, if anything changes on from when you originally applied for your permit, you have 30 days to notify the sheriff. So the fact that when you applied for the permit, you may not have been using medical marijuana, but now you are, so you only have 30 days to notify the sheriff. Is that correct, or is that incorrect? Because you had said you wouldn't lose any rights.
With the concealed carry, that's something that I was actually a little bit wondering, because I've asked a couple, I do not have my concealed carry or anything, and I wasn't, I guess so you do have to fill out a federal form whenever you get your concealed carry. So if it is up, if anything changes, if that's under like the fine lines, then yes, it would be up to you to inform someone if you become a medical marijuana patient, unfortunately. If any type of renewal or anything that causes you to fill out that form again, you'll have to answer truthfully.
Yes, any prospects for getting a new federal law that harmonizes these, and takes care of all these issues?
We hear about it a lot. It is going to take some time, though, for sure. There's a lot of bills out, right now. You'll hear about them all the time. I get, it seems like 3 a week about, bills for recreational, bills for the law change. It's just going to take some time. This is still so new. We just opened up our first dispensary February of 2018, so it's just 2 years, really. So, yeah, with some time, hopefully.
Hello, Mary. My question is marijuana a cure, like a medication, or is it a pain reliever? Or can you answer that?
So I can't claim that it's a cure. I always say, if you're a medical marijuana patient and you really don't have any expectations what to expect, I always say, using anxiety, since it's one of the most common conditions on that list, it's not going to take it away. It's not a cure-all drug at all. There isn't a lot of data on it, but it's incredible for treating or helping the symptoms involved with a lot of those conditions. Anxiety, when it comes to and it doesn't have a lot of documented side effects either. So I can't say it's a cure, no, but it can help tremendously with a lot of the related conditions and a lot of the side effects related on the approved list as well. Yes.
I can ask one, right? So you mentioned that we don't have a lot of time of studying the effects of it medically. Other countries, do they? Is there other countries?
Big time. Canada and Israel especially. Israel has been studying this since the late 80s. There's a lot of studies involved. And with other states too, especially, I think it's crazy that they haven't had research yet. I look at California as an example. They've had this since the 90s. I can't believe that they haven't been able to get anything through or, gotten the funding and been able to get that approved through universities. I think that's the most important part is, let's get some research involved. So I think in the next 5 to 10 years for US-based studies will be extremely helpful, but Israel is definitely like the capital of that. I have one question for everyone. Now, if anyone wants to hide their face, that's okay. Just so my boss knows that I was here today, would you guys care to take a picture with me? Okay. So if everyone can wave. Thank you so much, everyone.